You just yawned. Maybe you did not even notice. Maybe you are doing it right now, jaw dropping open, eyes watering, the whole thing completely outside your control. And here is the strange part. Nobody told you to. Nothing changed in the room. You were not even tired, yet your body did it anyway. You have been yawning your entire life, thousands of times, and you almost certainly have no idea why. The answer your brain gives you is simple. You yawn because you are tired, or bored, or need more oxygen. That is what most people believe. That is what most people are taught. But here is the thing. Every one of those explanations has been tested in a lab, and almost every one of them has been proven wrong. The real story of why you yawn is far older and far stranger than you think. Start with the oxygen theory. It sounds reasonable. You yawn, your lungs expand, you pull in a big breath of air. Surely that is the body asking for more oxygen. In 1987, a psychologist named Robert Provine at the University of Maryland decided to actually test this idea. He had participants breathe air with elevated carbon dioxide levels, which should trigger more yawning if the body was trying to regulate its oxygen intake. It did not. He had others breathe pure oxygen. Still no change in yawning frequency. The oxygen theory, the one you were probably taught as a fact, does not hold up. Your body is not yawning because it needs air. So what is it doing? The next theory that took hold was temperature regulation. Your brain, like any processing machine, generates heat. And a team led by Andrew Gallup at Princeton University found something remarkable. When people pressed a warm pack against their forehead, their rate of yawning went up. When they pressed a cold pack, yawning dropped almost entirely. Gallup and his colleagues proposed that yawning is a brain-cooling mechanism. The stretch of the jaw increases blood flow. The deep inhale pulls cooler air through the sinus cavities. Together, they act like a small radiator, flushing excess heat from the brain. Think about when you yawn the most. Right after you wake up. Right before you fall asleep. Those are the two moments when your brain temperature is in flux, transitioning between states. It is not a coincidence. Your body is running a thermal check. But that still does not explain everything. Because yawning is not just something your body does. It is something that spreads. And that is where the story gets genuinely strange. Look at someone yawning right now. Actually, think about a yawn. Feel your jaw. Picture the slow stretch, the watering eyes, the deep inhale. If you are a typical human being, something in you just fired. A pull toward yawning that you may or may not have been able to resist. This is called contagious yawning, and scientists have been studying it for decades trying to understand what it reveals about the human mind. The first thing researchers noticed was that contagious yawning is not universal. Children under the age of 4 rarely catch yawns from others. Individuals with autism spectrum conditions show significantly reduced rates of contagious yawning. And in a series of studies, people who scored higher on measures of empathy were far more likely to catch a yawn from someone else. The connection was clear enough that researchers at the University of Connecticut, led by Brian Platek, proposed that contagious yawning is a marker for something called theory of mind, the ability to model the mental states of others, to understand that another person has feelings, experiences, and a perspective separate from your own. In other words, catching a yawn is not just a reflex. It might be a sign of social attunement. Chimpanzees catch yawns from other chimpanzees. So do dogs. And here is the detail that researchers find most striking. Dogs can catch yawns from humans, particularly from humans they are bonded with. This is extraordinarily rare in the animal kingdom. It suggests that whatever contagious yawning is measuring, it runs deep. It predates language. It predates civilization. It may be one of the oldest forms of social synchrony that exists. Now hold on to that word, synchrony, because it matters. One of the leading theories about why yawning spreads socially comes from the world of evolutionary biology. When your ancient ancestors lived in groups, they had to coordinate. Not with calendars or alarms or meetings, they coordinated through behavior. When one member of a group started winding down, started shifting toward rest, it may have been adaptive for the entire group to sync up. A group that sleeps together stays together. A group that yawns together moves toward rest together. Contagious yawning under this theory was a primitive alarm clock. Not one that woke you up, but one that signaled it was time to shift state, collectively. That is worth sitting with for a moment. Every time you catch a yawn from someone across the room, your nervous system is running an ancient piece of social code. Something that helped your ancestors coordinate their lives before words existed to do it. And yet, you might be wondering, what about the boredom? Because you definitely yawn more when you are bored. And that much is real. But the mechanism is not what you think. Boredom does not cause yawning through lack of stimulation. It causes yawning because boredom is a low arousal state. And in a low arousal state, your core brain temperature dips, which loops right back to Gallup's thermal regulation theory. You yawn when you are bored because your brain is cooling down, not because your mind is empty. Your brain is always giving you a simplified story. It says, you are tired, you yawned. But the actual sequence beneath that is far more precise. Your brain temperature shifted. Your hypothalamus, which monitors thermal balance, sent a signal. Your jaw dropped open. Air moved across your sinuses. A tiny amount of heat was exchanged. And then you looked at someone else, and their mirroring neurons fired, and they did the same thing 6 seconds later, and they had no idea why either. There is one more piece of this that almost nobody knows. Fetuses yawn. Inside the womb, at around 11 weeks of gestation, unborn humans begin yawning. This was documented in ultrasound research by Nadia Reisland at Durham University. 11 weeks, before the lungs are developed enough to breathe, before there is any social world to synchronize with, before there is any concept of being tired or bored. The fetus yawns anyway. What that tells us is that yawning is not learned. It is not cultural. It is not even particularly cognitive. It is written into the architecture of your body at the most fundamental level, stitched into the earliest stages of human development, running on hardware that predates everything you think of as you. You are not yawning because you are sleepy. You are yawning because you are an animal, running ancient code, syncing your body to the world around you, managing a brain that generates more heat than most people realize, reaching toward other minds without knowing you are doing it. The next time you feel that pull in your jaw, that slow, uncontrollable stretch, the thing you cannot stop no matter how hard you try, you will know what is actually happening. Your ancient brain is doing its job. And somewhere nearby, someone else's ancient brain is about to do the same thing.